no. You cannot say no.
Made the decision to discontinue.
Wait, this is Katie's trial. What are we gonna do?
Nothing until we talk.
What's up? I can't breathe. I gotta call you back. Give me a...
Grey's Anatomy fans won't have to wait much longer. Season 22, Episode 10 is almost here, and it promises another emotional, character-driven hour at Grey Sloan Memorial. Episode 10 officially premieres on Thursday, January 29, 2026, airing at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. For viewers who missed the live broadcast, the episode will be available to stream shortly after on Hulu, with select international platforms carrying it depending on region. Season 22 continues to prove that Grey's Anatomy still knows how to deliver high-stakes drama even after 2 decades on air. Episode 10 follows the fallout from recent medical crises and deeply personal storylines. Richard Webber faces a defining moment during surgery that forces him to confront long-buried guilt and fear, while Meredith and Nick deal with growing tension tied to family and trust. Meanwhile, the residents remain caught between hospital politics, moral dilemmas, and complicated relationships that blur professional boundaries. Medical advisor Dr. Michael Metzner has revealed that many of this season's intense cases, including massive tumors and Joe Wilson's near-death experience, are inspired by real-world medicine, adding realism to the emotional storytelling fans expect. With longtime characters at emotional crossroads, newer residents pushing limits, and the show balancing medical intensity with heartfelt drama, Episode 10 is shaping up to be a must-watch installment. Hey, lovely viewers, welcome to our channel Grey's Anatomy Official. Grey's Anatomy Season 22 Episode 10 Release Date, Time, Where to Watch. The release date and time for Grey's Anatomy Season 22, Episode 10 are imminent, and audiences worldwide are preparing to discover precisely when and where they can view the upcoming episode online. The show is still going strong in Season 22, blending intense hospital chaos with all the emotional ups and downs fans love. Grey Sloan feels livelier than ever, new residents are shaking up the routine, longtime characters are facing make-or-break choices, and unexpected twists keep the drama fresh. Grey's Anatomy is filled with growth, surprises, and the kind of storytelling that reminds you why the show has lasted this long. Even after 2 decades, it proves it still knows how to keep viewers hooked. The series cast features Ellen Pompeo, Chandra Wilson, Justin Chambers, Sandra Oh, Katherine Heigl, James Pickens Jr., Kevin McKidd, Jesse Williams, and others. Here is all the information you require regarding the release date, time, and methods to watch Grey's Anatomy Season 22 Episode 10. When is the Grey's Anatomy Season 22 Episode 10 release date and time? The episode's release date is Thursday, January 29, 2026, and its release time is 7 p.m. Pacific Time and 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Grey's Anatomy a medical advisor reveals all about Season 22's massive tumor, Joe's near-death scare, and other behind-the-scenes secrets. Medically speaking, it's been a wild couple of weeks over at Grey Sloan Memorial. Of course, if you follow Grey's Anatomy, you're probably thinking, is it ever not wild at Grey Sloan? Well, true, but the recent episodes of Season 22 have been packed with eye-popping crises and emergencies. The aftermath of that shocking explosion had our favorite guitar-playing surgeon, Link, Chris Carmack, all jacked up, for starters. Then, there's Joe's, Camilla Luddington, terrifying near-death experience, and that massive tumor in Episode 8, Heavy on Me, might be ranked among the gnarliest things we've seen on the show in a while. You might already know that Grey's employs a small army of real doctors and medical experts who ensure that every procedure is grounded in accuracy, and with 8 seasons under his belt, medical advisor and supervising producer Dr. Michael Metzner has seen, and advised on, a lot. Shondaland caught up with the busy, still practicing doctor to hear what he had to say about some of the more memorable medical moments of the season so far, what happens when the cameras aren't rolling, and who among the cast is a near-natural surgeon. Here's what he revealed. Oh, it's insane. I work 7 days a week, so I'll see patients on Saturday, Sundays, and then I'm at Grey's, Monday through Friday because I do the writer's room, set, and post-production. I say that I have the best job in the world, but I have very little time. MV, what's your specialty? I trained in general surgery in San Antonio. During my research sabbatical, I actually came to Grey's. We have a medical research fellowship where we have a new resident come in a couple times per year. I have a background in TV and film. As a kid, I did theater in kindergarten, plays, even, during medical school. It was just kind of a weird niche. They asked me to stay for 6 months, that turned into a year, and now it's been 8 seasons. It was based on a real patient. That happened locally at USC. It just so happens that the cardiothoracic surgeon who did this case has been one of our consultants for years. He was the first one to ever do it. We actually interviewed the patient who went under this surgery as well. We were inspired by the real case. In Nora's case, she had something called a Nissen fundoplication, which is done for, like, acid reflux in really severe cases. And that surgery went badly. They nicked her esophagus. She had a leak, and that just started this crazy spiral of things that happened with this infection that just kept getting worse and worse and worse until she was either gonna die or get this Hail Mary surgery. There are a number of case reports talking about what we call a megateratoma in the mediastinum or in the chest. It's a benign tumor. This is the tumor that we've done previous cases on where, like, we've shown the teeth and the hair growing in the tumor. They can get really big. And if people don't get checked, they can continue to grow unchecked. And so, when they get super big, to the point where they're pushing on the lung and heart, they become not great surgical candidates. So, we have to do things that we don't necessarily love to do, like putting someone on a bypass machine before even starting the operation, which we had to do in this case. Unfortunately, there are a lot of issues within our medical system. I've seen multiple times where underinsured individuals or people who just don't have the resources in an outpatient clinic setting or, like, a pro bono kind of clinic setting. It does happen more frequently than you'd think. Where they would say, hey, I'm on call that day. These are the symptoms. And so, that way they get a little bit more fast-tracked because there are a lot of people who just don't have access to healthcare. And unfortunately, that is where we are right now. I've definitely seen that happen before. MV, how do you work with the writers to ensure that the tension feels grounded rather than just sort of like TV magic? I think that's one of our hardest things about the job, right? We have a whole medical team. It's not just me. We have between 2 and 3 people in the room at any one time who are physicians. We have our normal consultants that we talk to about each of the episodes, but you want to balance the reality and then the entertainment factor. First and foremost, we are a television show. If we were to really show what's happening in the hospital all the time, when 75% of a physician's time is administrative work, viewers would probably fall asleep. We want to balance telling authentic stories that are educational, but again, it is a television show, so it's kind of finding that authenticity but also making it enjoyable to watch. Especially with the cases we tend to focus on, very tense situations where minutes and seconds really do matter. If you're not doing the dissection properly, if you get into bleeding, there's so many landmines that can happen in surgery. Crafting these stories that are authentic but fun to watch is the best part. MV, which of the cast members has been the quickest to master the surgical techniques under your guidance? Well, I'd say Chris Carmack. Let me tell you, I was teaching him an advanced technique of how to suture. I think it's like guitar skills, but within 5 minutes he was doing it, and he was doing it as well as an intern, probably, in general surgery. I was blown away. That's actually a story I've been pitching for 5 years. So many times, it made it into a writer's draft, or we were talking about it in the writer's room, but we always were like, this has to be a main story. This can't just be like, oh, this pregnant woman has heart failure, and we put in an Impella pump in order to help. So, we were really holding this story until the perfect moment. When Jo was pregnant, showrunner Meg A. Marinas and I were talking, and she was like, I think this is finally the one. We do a lot of work on tracking disease processes and dropping little things in episodes leading up to where you actually have that crisis. If you actually go back and then rewatch those episodes, you'll see, like, she was acting a little short of breath, but we didn't really make a big deal of that. We try and kind of put seeds for all those things that people don't even realize it. And then, if you went back, you'd actually be like, oh, my gosh, they really did think about that. This is a personal story for him because he actually went through this himself. Meg, myself, and Jim met together, and we kind of just talked about his own story and what his comfort was with telling the story through Richard's eyes. We wanted, again, to be as authentic as possible. Prostate cancer is a very important issue that we want to talk about, and we'll be going further into that. MV, Grey's shows a lot of cutting-edge procedures too, like the in utero brain surgery in season 20. How do you all stay abreast of all the new tech and developments in the field? We have a researcher who is constantly scouring news articles and different journals and all that kind of thing. That was done actually at Brigham, a Harvard-affiliated hospital. We had worked with Hollywood, Health and Society to connect us with the actual neuroradiologist who did that. That technique, the first time it was ever done was in the 90s, and they had, like, 0% success. So, everyone had abandoned these techniques back in the 90s, and Dr. Darren Orbach was the first one to say, let's see if we can actually do this again and modify the techniques a little bit. We ended up meeting him. We actually flew him in. He ended up being in the episode and part of the surgery that he actually helped put together. This is another part of the job that I love. We get to meet these experts around the world who are the only ones in the world who have done what they're doing. Grey's Anatomy Season 22 Episode 9 Review. Weber and Nick revisit ghosts from the past. He two most notable pieces of storytelling where the direction was eye-grabbing were everything involving Weber's dream sequence with his father, and the setting of Nick and Mare's home, so peaceful, spacious, huge, and open, before Erica steps through the door and rips open old wounds. Weber's storyline was impactful. In fact, the biggest issue with the structuring of installments like this sometimes is how you almost desire for one primary storyline rather than the desire to juggle more. Truthfully, Weber, as someone who has been part of this series since the beginning, is an impactful enough character with enough gravitas, not to mention a powerful story arc, to carry an entire hour by himself. Grey's Anatomy Season 22 Episode 10 Recap. Weber gets a shock during surgery after initially getting started learning that Jules is still pretending to be Sally and Blue is still seeing Mohunty. Grey's Anatomy Season 22 Episode 10 gets into the real stories. We have Nick's sister coming to town as Weber gets ready for surgery. Caution, this post contains spoilers for Grey's Anatomy Season 22 Episode 10. We get caught up on the research that Meredith is currently doing, trying to figure out why the Alzheimer's medication isn't working on the female mice properly, but that's cut short with Nick's sister turning up. She comes with a surprise, a son. Weber gets ready for surgery on Grey's Anatomy Season 22 Episode 10. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Weber is getting ready for his surgery, after agreeing to do it during Grey's Anatomy Season 22 Episode 9. Naturally, Catherine is antsy, and that means she makes sure her husband gets the best care possible. Most of the doctors and nurses there aren't fazed by her, but there is a newbie who looks terrified. While waiting, Weber meets a man, Curtis, who also has prostate cancer, but it has spread to his spine. He's going through treatments to be able to spend as much time with his kids as possible, and you just know that this is going to play on Weber's mind a little, and it's going to come up later. Meanwhile, Nick is shocked to find out that his sister has another child. Erica just seems to brush the shock off, and she even seems to just forget that she has another daughter, Charlotte, who Nick has raised. It's easy to see why he's getting so frustrated with her. Just how sober is she? In fact, we go into Weber's head while he's under general anesthesia. Nobody else is around, except Curtis. As Curtis collapses, Weber sees someone else in his mind, his dad. Catherine is angry with Weber's death plans. While Weber continues to face his own fears and demons, Jules and Adams focus on helping a tennis coach and Uber driver. He has a few jobs, and I can totally relate with his whole career story, who comes in with tingling in his arm. He read that it could mean a heart attack, and when they do an X-ray, they see that there could be something that is mimicking a heart attack. Elsewhere, Catherine is angry with Weber's recent updates to his directives. She's found out that Weber wants to be buried next to Adele, which angers her, because Adele should be in his past. It just shows that Catherine has no respect for everything that happened in the past, but then, why should we be surprised, considering who she is? Of course, she decides to buy the plot next to Weber. Meanwhile, there's bad news for the tennis coach. While it's just surgery that he needs to remove something from his shoulder, it means running pre-authorization with his insurance company, but that could take a month or two, and he is struggling to work with the pain that he's in. Back with Meredith and Nick, Nick finally asks his sister about whether she's sober. There's plenty of tension between the siblings that Meredith attempts to diffuse. It's ironic seeing Meredith do this, when it was always Derek diffusing things between her and her sisters. The problem for Nick is that he's been in this situation before with his sister, and he knows how it ends. He's worried that the same thing will happen again. Jules and Adams put a plan together for their patient. Jules and Adams spend some time trying to find a way to help their patient, while Catherine and Bailey discuss the burial plots. Bailey thinks that Catherine should hold on the decision to get the burial plot to talk to Weber about it, but Catherine isn't waiting. She wants that spot, and she'll sell it if she needs to. Oh, to have that money. Weber continues his journey while under general anesthesia. We get a look at the animosity Weber has held for his father for so long, and it's clear that this is all in Weber's head, as his dad points out that it's his dream. So, it's time for Weber to share everything that his dad has missed over the years. While Jules has a plan to help with their patient, things go awry when Simone ends up taking him when he comes back into the hospital with words the doctors have clearly told him. Meredith and Nick spend some time talking things through, but the sound of a door closing and a car starting disrupts it all. Nick has the baby, and it looks like Erica is doing the same thing all over again. She's taking off so Nick will raise her baby again. Although, can we jump to conclusions? Nick feels like he knows where the story is going. Jules and Adams decide the best option is to tell Simone the truth about the events that happened up to this point. This is exactly what Sally would do. Simone isn't too happy about lying about how severe the patient's pain is, but there isn't time to argue against it. Winston is back, and he immediately recognizes the guy. Meanwhile, Nick decides to go to get more diapers and formula. Sure, there may be some in the bag, but he doesn't think there's enough. He won't listen to Meredith at her just going to an AA meeting. Nick is sure his sister is back in a bar. While Weber and his dad talk about Maggie and the son that she is going to have, there's the sound of hospital monitors. It's clearly everything that is going on in the operating theater, which suggests that Weber struggles on the table and eventually flatlines. This is all while Weber thinks that he should tell Maggie about the cancer to see if there's a family history that could affect her son. Despite Blue having no idea about what's going on, he does encourage Winston not to question the patient's pain. However, he also makes it clear to Simone that he won't get involved in whatever is going on. He's already in trouble from earlier in the season, and he's not going to end up in hot water again for the rest of them. I can't really blame him, but of course, the interns want to help their patients just like we saw with Meredith, Izzy, Christina, and even Bailey. We get to the root of Weber's dream on Grey's Anatomy. Meredith and Nick face their first real fallout since getting together officially. Meredith points out that Nick needs to stop reacting, but the full truth of the past comes out. Nick was planning on proposing to his girlfriend when Erica left Charlotte with him, and that girlfriend left because having a 10-year-old wasn't in the plans. He's worried the same thing will happen with Meredith, but Meredith isn't his former girlfriend, and they are in very different parts of their life. Erica ends up turning back up, though, so maybe this isn't a repeat. In surgery, Winston sees that the symptoms don't match what he's seeing in the patient. It doesn't take long for Winston to realize that Jules is up to something, and while he will help the patient, he wants to speak to Jules. As for Catherine, she isn't going to get the burial plot next to the one Weber has got. It wasn't about the death or the burial, though. Catherine worries that they won't have enough time in life, because they found each other so late. One thing that gave her peace was unity in death, and Bailey explains that maybe they can find another way to unite in death. Catherine gets the oddest idea. She decides that she'll be cremated and spread across Weber's grave. They can still be together. As for Weber, we get to the root of why he's seeing his dad right now. The prostate cancer was caught too late, and Weber blames himself. While his dad didn't know the signs of prostate cancer, Weber did, and he should have noticed that something was wrong. Weber blames himself for his dad not getting help in time, and it's a guilt he's clearly lived with for years. Wrapping up another emotional episode of Grey's Anatomy. It turns out that Erica took a drive and called her sponsor. She also took a nap because she's so sleep-deprived. Rather than listening to Erica, Nick starts to argue with her, but it leads to her admitting that one night while driving around to get her son to sleep, she ended up in the parking lot of a bar. She knew that if she walked in, that would be it, so she ended up driving. Nick's place was the only place that she could go. With the truth out, Nick calms down and takes a step back from the argument. It's time to actually talk, and they need to work things out to help Erica. As for back at the hospital, Winston shares the update with Jules, and he asks her if she finds it odd that the patient came in with textbook symptoms of a rupture. Jules isn't going to share what she really did, but Winston can tell that she's lying to him. Is there any hope for these two to get together? Meanwhile, Weber makes a sort of peace with his feelings, but he admits that he will live with the guilt of not saving his father for as long as he'll live, especially since he'll outlive the disease that killed his dad. As the machines beep again, Weber rushes to save his dad, but he's already gone. Just as we started to fear that the machines were a sign that Weber had died on the table, he wakes up in a hospital bed with Bailey by his side. The first thing he wants Bailey to do is to check in on the patient, Curtis, to make sure Curtis knows that Weber is there to talk about anything wanted. That is something Bailey can do, although she's getting Catherine first. Weber isn't the only one who will live with the guilt. Jules has to live with the guilt of lying to Winston and Winston knowing about it. At least it doesn't look like Winston will report them for their actions. Back with Nick and Meredith, Nick spends time thinking about how Meredith said that they're in this together. Would Meredith have raised Miles with him if it came to it? Of course she would. We know that she is with Nick through thick and thin. Will we get an episode with him proposing? We get the amazing news that we needed to hear about Weber in the end. He's cancer-free. The surgery worked. It's allergies, I swear. Kim Raver reveals the Grey's Anatomy storyline that kept her up at night during a sit-down with Mark Consuelos and Kelly Ripa on Thursday, January 22. Raver discussed her role as Dr. Teddy Altman. When Consuelos asked her which storyline kept you up at night, Raver did not hesitate with her answer. I mean, I have to say I think the open marriage of Teddy and Owen Hunt was really complicated because I love the character of Teddy so much, and I love the relationship, and I just wanted to be very mindful how we were entering into that whole complicated dynamic. She went on to praise the writers before revealing that she and the showrunner, Meg, would openly discuss the storyline between takes. To her credit, she really heard how both Kevin McKidd wanted to protect these characters. I think she did a great job, she added. Kim Raver talks of Grey's Anatomy's longevity. The TV doctor, who joined the hit series during its 6th season in 2009, shared that she believes the Shondaland Pioneer has been so successful for more than 2 decades because of its relatability. I mean, the writers are incredible. And Shonda Rhimes' vision of the story, I think it's just very relatable because the stories are just very human. And obviously, from Teddy, you can see, she has some really messy moment, that she makes really big mistakes, and then she also has some incredible hero moments. I just find that that's just very relatable, Raver explained to Ripa and Consuelos. It's not these sort of perfect people doing their best all the time. It's definitely a very complicated life on everyone's part. So, I think that we as humans watching it relate to that and at least have sort of your like, oh, okay. I see what she's doing and I don't really agree with it, but I don't feel like I'm watching sort of like just a movie version of a human. Raver has had the opportunity to direct 4 episodes of A Grey's Anatomy, her most recent airing this week, something she is so grateful for. I just feel so lucky that I'm getting to direct there, and that I've got Debbie Allen as my mentor. She's just extraordinary, she told New Beauty in an interview published Thursday, January 22. I learned so much from her and have such an unbelievable crew. The writing of this episode, in particular, is just amazing. There's a very big storyline with Jim Pickens. I know that he's publicly come out with prostate cancer, and we are also following that story in my episode for his character, Richard. New Grey's Anatomy Season 22 trailer confirms Addison Montgomery's return after 3 years. Grey's Anatomy has finally confirmed that Addison Montgomery is returning. Kate Walsh joined the medical drama as a series regular in Season 2 after making a guest appearance in Season 1 as Derek Shepherd's estranged wife. The actor then landed her own spin-off series, Private Practice, and had a recurring role on Grey's Anatomy 3 years ago. According to a new promo for Grey's Anatomy Season 22, Episode 11, titled Strip That Down, which will air on Thursday, January 29, Walsh is set to reprise the role of Addison. The preview opens with Amelia Shepherd opening her front door and expressing shock when she sees Addison, who says, "I've got a patient waiting at Gray Sloan." Amelia gets exasperated because she's on sabbatical and shouldn't be working right now. Addison tells her former sister-in-law that she can't say no. Elsewhere in the promo, Ben Warren and Lucas Adams are confused after reading an email telling them that a patient's trial is being discontinued. Warren decides to call his wife, Miranda Bailey, who's sitting in an ambulance. The patient in the emergency vehicle explains that she can't breathe, causing Bailey to hang up the phone and ask for a scalpel. Owen Hunt, who's also in the ambulance, angrily tells Benson Quan, "This is not a trauma room. Stop." Bailey insists on obtaining the scalpel from Quan, who nervously looks between her and Hunt, unsure what to do. Take a look at the Grey's Anatomy promo below. Walsh was only a full-time cast member on Grey's Anatomy for 2 seasons when ABC ordered the show's first spin-off, Private Practice, which aired for 6 seasons and uprooted Addison from Washington State to California. Along with Walsh, Private Practice also starred Tim Daly, Audra McDonald, Paul Adelstein, Katie Strickland, Chris Lowell, Taye Diggs, and Amy Brenneman. Katerina Scorsone joined in Season 3 as Derek's sister, Amelia, first in a recurring role before becoming a series regular. After Private Practice ended in 2013, Scorsone reprised her character on Grey's Anatomy and is still a main cast member to this day, despite a recent hiatus. Walsh, though, remained absent from the Shonda Rhimes-created world until Seasons 18 and 19, when she had a recurring guest role for 8 episodes. Reproductive rights became a focal point of her storyline during this time, which started when she returned to Gray Sloan for a uterine transplant. During those 8 years away from the Grey's Anatomy universe, Walsh appeared in movies like Scary Movie 5 and Girls Trip, and starred in the TV shows Fargo, Bad Judge, 13 Reasons Why, The Umbrella Academy, and Emily in Paris. Unlike her recurring role 3 years ago, Walsh's latest return is only 1 episode. As seen in the preview, she's back at Gray Sloan to help one of her patients, and she's relying on Amelia to get the job done. The upcoming Grey's Anatomy episode also marks the return of Scorsone, whose last appearance was in October 2025. Your official Grey's Anatomy recap, Season 22, Episode 7. Let's calm everyone's hiatus fears. At the top of the Grey's Anatomy mid-season premiere, Winston Dugu successfully performs a C-section on Jo Wilson and delivers her and Link's twin girls. Baby B gets an assist from an OB who finally freaking shows up. That's good news, right? Yes, definitely. But as Grey's is wont to do, troubling news immediately follows. Jo's heart is still failing. Winston is able to place the pump to, hopefully, correct her cardiomyopathy, but she's still in critical condition and comes out of that, or as a mom to twins, but also in a coma. On top of the very precarious Jo and Link situation, Skyfall also has some fallout from Richard Weber's cancer, 2 residents making some major romantic decisions, and a patient literally falling out of the sky. Welcome back to Gray Sloan Memorial, everybody. Checking in with the Lincoln Wilson family. So, yes, Jo is in a coma, and her heart is not healing from the pump placement as they'd hoped. It's bad. And yes, both of her daughters are on vents in the NICU, and while baby A is quickly moved to a CPAP, they discover that baby B has a heart murmur. Again, very bad. Oh, did you think I was going to have a third thing here that offered some sign of hope? Well, you're wrong. Everything is bad right now. Poor Lincoln is barely holding it together as he runs from his intubated wife's hospital room to the NICU to be with his daughters, and on top of that, he needs to keep checking in on his other 2 very small children. Link is so stressed and upset, understandably, that he doesn't notice just how many people at that hospital are rallying around him. Ben, Bailey, and Weber refuse to leave Jo by herself. Teddy arrives to be there for Link and for his daughters, offering to help him parse through baby B's heart issues. In fact, at one point, when Link returns to the NICU, it's Teddy who has to warn him that baby B was sedated and put on an oscillatory vent because of her heart issues, which means it's Teddy who takes the brunt of Link's anger for not informing him that this was happening. It happened fast, there was no time to wait. Teddy, of course, doesn't take it personally. Link is hurting, and now, on top of everything else, he feels guilty for not being there for his daughter. It's Weber who finds Link alone in the chapel. Link is not a religious person, and praying really only makes him angrier. He doesn't even know why he came into this room, even though we all know it does seem to beckon the sad men of Grey's Anatomy from time to time. Weber tells him that it's okay to not find peace or comfort in the thought of a higher power. In AA, he says, they have a saying, if you can't bring yourself to believe in a higher power, believe in the people in this room. Link has a room full of some pretty great people. Let them give you peace, Weber tells him. 22 seasons in, and Richard Weber is still out here releasing bangers. Link finally sees all the support he has. He apologizes to Teddy. He asks Ben for help when he needs it. And in the end, he finally gets some good news. Both Baby B and Joe show signs of healing. Is the pact intact? Over on the romantic side of Grey's Anatomy this week, our residents are learning one of the lessons best taught by the death-ridden hellscape that Grey Sloane so often becomes. Just go for it, ya dummies. At the beginning of the season, Jules and Simone made a celibacy pact. They are serious women who are serious about their work and seriously have zero time for sex and the inevitable drama it brings. This pact, of course, was just a vehicle for both women to live in denial a little longer in regard to the fact that they both had caught some feelings for men who would make their lives complicated. Jules and her mentor Winston have been slow burning their romance since last season, and Simone can't seem to stay out of Wes, her hookup, who was the nail in the coffin of her relationship with Lucas. That man is so tall, and he is seemingly everywhere. It has become very obvious that their heads may be in the pact, but their hearts, and libidos, are definitely not. When an emergency rolls in and Jules learns that the victim, Graham, who is suffering from severe burns and internal bleeding, was attempting a skywriting proposal for his girlfriend of just 8 weeks, she couldn't roll her eyes harder. This guy, a rope course instructor who has had his pilot's license for just 4 months, is ridiculous, and there's no way his very put-together lawyer girlfriend Fiona would ever say yes. And then, Jules meets Fiona. Fiona is deeply in love with Graham. She is beside herself that he got hurt trying to propose. She didn't need some big gesture, she would have said yes. She explains to Jules that most people don't understand their relationship, but that doesn't matter, it makes perfect sense to her. And when Graham ultimately succumbs to his injuries, Jules watches as a devastated Fiona collects her dead boyfriend's things. The tragedy inspires Jules, who cares if being with her attending mentor will make things complicated or if people might judge her. Jules has feelings for Winston, and she needs to act on them before it's too late. She rushes over to Joe's, where she is about to unload her feelings to Winston, but finds him happily sitting at the bar getting a drink with a very cute OB nurse named Iris. Jules isn't falling to her death from a prop plane or anything, but she may have very well missed her chance with Winston. Simone also finds herself inspired to take action that day, and it comes from a surprising source, Benson Quan. I mean, this man seems to have terrible decision-making skills when it comes to women, but Simone has honestly been desperate to find any reason to finally revisit her time well spent with Wes. Quan and Mohunty apparently had a very satisfying evening together following their elevator makeout. A woman doesn't make waffles for mediocre sex, okay? Quan insists to Simone that he and Mohunty aren't serious, this is supposed to be fun. But Simone, hung up on how things fell apart for her and Lucas, advises her roommate that workplace relationships can't just be fun. When you sleep with someone you work with every day, there is no way it can't be serious. He needs to make some sort of gesture to show Mohunty he understands this rule. Simone is nearby when Mohunty gets the flowers, so she has a front row seat to Mohunty's confused reaction. Mohunty thought she and Quan were on the same page, that this was just supposed to be fun. Simone completely read Quan's situation wrong. Quan and Mohunty seem to be just fine after an awkward conversation that only serves to endear the resident to our new plastics fellow. They will continue having unserious fun for the foreseeable future. Simone, however, has her world rocked a little. Maybe a workplace relationship can be fun? Maybe she doesn't have to take her attraction to Wes so seriously? The next time she sees him, she pulls him into an on-call room and finally gives in to her feelings. Something tells me this thing with Wes won't remain carefree for long, but for now, Simone is finally going for it. That pact? That pact is so not intact anymore. Grey Sloane Memorial, where the doctors get involved. The doctors at Grey Sloane just love to get emotionally attached to their patients, don't they? Many times, this is because they already happen to know their patients, as with Miranda Bailey's problem this week. Weber isn't her patient, exactly, but she is the only one who knows about his pancreatic cancer diagnosis, and that puts a lot of pressure on her to make sure he's not living in denial. He doesn't even know what stage his cancer is, and he needs more blood tests, but he's been slow to do anything about it. She thinks he's stubborn, and he thinks she's butting in where she doesn't belong. But Bailey isn't one to give up, and Weber just shared that very heartfelt moment with Link about letting the people who love you give you support, and in the end, he has Bailey take blood for him so he can get additional tests. He's hearing what she's saying. While that relieves some of the stress Bailey's feeling, she's also worried about Joe. It certainly doesn't help that in the middle of everything, she is the one in the room when Joe goes into VTach. Ben and Winston eventually arrive, and Winston simply needs to adjust Joe's pump, but it's a scary moment, and Ben can see that Bailey is about to lose it. Once Joe is on the mend, he tells Winston he can take over, and Winston, good on him, can pick up that these two need some time alone. Bailey's having a panic attack, and Ben can see it in her eyes. He holds her hands as he has her name sounds she can hear. When that's not enough to ground her, he holds her close and talks her through it until she can breathe again. When Joe finally wakes up, I hope Bailey was the first person Link calls. The woman deserves to know. While Bailey's at Gray Sloan stressing over patients she already cares about, Lucas Adams is possibly getting involved in the traditional Grey's Anatomy "I'm getting too involved with my patient, and feelings are getting blurry" storyline. Bailey's stage for cancer patient Katie is set to begin her clinical trial, until Lucas, who you will remember asked Bailey to stay on Katie's care team throughout her entire treatment, discovers her first dose of medication is expired. Bailey, clearly stressed enough, wants Lucas to handle the problem. This means it is Lucas who drives Katie over to a hospital in Tacoma where they have the same drugs available. The out-of-hospital adventure bonds doctor and patient. After a popped tire delays them further, Katie schools Lucas in having some bedside manner and eventually opens up about just how difficult this has all been. The cancer sucks, obviously, and she feels terrible all the time, but sometimes even worse is the emotional toll. Not only is she grappling with the fact that there's a good chance she could die, but her two best friends have ghosted her, claiming they are giving her space. She's never felt more alone. Of course, our brooding but kind-hearted little sweetie takes this to heart. When Katie's all set up for her drug infusion, Lucas could leave, but he sits with her the entire time. He even watches Sleepless in Seattle with her, although he doesn't exactly seem like a rom-com guy. As he drives her home, she talks about being jealous of Tom Hanks' character in the movie because he lives on the water in a houseboat in Seattle. She doesn't live far from the water but hasn't been to see it in so long. It's gorgeous. She misses it. "What are you doing right now?" he asks her. He thinks they should go see the houseboats right now. And so, they do. I don't exactly know where this storyline is headed, but I'm not thinking about Denny Duquette, if you know what I'm saying. You're a Grey's Anatomy official recap, Season 22, Episode 6. It's a busy day over at Gray Sloan Memorial as When I Crash gets underway. And doesn't that just feel right for our mid-season finale of Grey's Anatomy? Joe and Link and their babies are put in a precarious situation, Weber delivers some troubling news, and people who have never made out with each other before make out with each other. On an elevator, no less. It's a lot to chew on as we head into our winter hiatus. Let's talk about it. Choose your own adventure, Newborn Hellscape. At the end of last week's episode, when Joe noted that the way she was leaking wasn't normal, she was not kidding. At first, it seems like the babies are fine and the cervical circlage is holding, but things go off the rails quickly when she suddenly gets short of breath. To be safe, she wants cardio to check her out. If anyone knows how to advocate for a pregnant patient, it's Joe. Link doesn't get a hold of just any cardio doctor to run tests on his wife, he gets the cardio chief himself. Link going immediately to Winston to check on Joe is a telltale sign that Link is freaking out. A sign, as it turns out, that is quite necessary since Link and Joe have a major problem. Both are terrified about what's happening, but neither wants to stress the other out, so they're pretending everything is fine. This is a terrible tactic. Sure, they need to remain as calm as possible for Joe's and the baby's health, but pretending you're doing okay, as the news gets progressively worse doesn't help anybody. This becomes especially true when Winston and Ben, who has an excellent poker face, by the way, finally inform Joe and Link what's going on. Joe has peripartum cardiomyopathy. Her heart is failing. Winston, who has no real OB experience, is about as calm a doctor as you could ask for at a time like this. At this point, Joe still has some options. First, she can take some medication that might prevent things from getting worse. If the meds don't work, there is a pump they could install directly into a ventricle, which would support the heart and give it time to recover. The pump, though not ideal, would give the babies more time in utero. They should have 7 more weeks. The nuclear option, of course, is an emergency C-section 7 weeks early. Sigh, we all know where this goes. When Link catches Winston and Ben alone, he asks them, as a friend, how worried should he be? The time for poker faces and pretending everything is just fine is over. This is serious, but they are watching it. Joe is their priority. It would be nice if an OB doctor could check on her. Where is Karina DeLuca when you need her? Still, the guys push on with their course of treatment. Did anyone actually think the meds were going to work? Things quickly take a turn. Joe's blood pressure drops dangerously low, and she's having even more trouble breathing. Ben and Winston rush Joe out to the OR to place the pump and, hopefully, stop her from crashing, just as Link walks in after making a call to check on the kids. It is chaos. The man is distraught. I'm starting to feel bad about how much I judged him for singing his vows. Sing your vows, dude. Sing whatever you want. Oh, did you think once Winston and Ben got Joe into the OR things would be a breeze? You've never watched this show before, have you? Before Winston can do anything, the OB nurse says she's lost both fetal heart tones. The babies need to be delivered now. Unfortunately, no OBs are currently available, and this really isn't something you can table until someone's schedule clears up. Winston, who hasn't performed a C-section since med school, will have to deliver Joe's babies. He grabs a scalpel, and he makes the first cut. Push it. Push it real good. Worrying about Joe and her babies won't be the only development vexing Grey's Anatomy fans over the winter hiatus. Richard Webber is in trouble. And it all starts with Teddy finding Owen naked in bed with another woman. Well, sort of. You'll see. After Teddy and her kids walk in on Owen and Nora in bed in Owen's trailer, both the doctors happen to be in the area when a major, multiple motor vehicle accident leaves a cyclist trapped under a bus. Teddy and Owen get over their awkwardness to prevent Maisie from bleeding out right there on the street, even when it takes Teddy crawling under that unstable bus to place a tourniquet on Maisie's leg to stop said bleeding. Maisie is upset for so many reasons. Being trapped under a bus is probably, number 1, including the fact that she and her boyfriend recently broke up over what now feels like a very stupid fight, and all she wants right now is to talk to him. This situation with Maisie is clearly supposed to parallel Teddy and Owen's situation. If it's not clear when they are trying to save Maisie's life, it should be when Teddy runs into that ex-boyfriend, who is in tears, asking if Maisie is okay, and is overwhelmed with regret for ever walking out on her. Are Teddy and Owen rushing to divorce when they might regret it? If something were to happen to either of them, wouldn't it be the other person they'd want with them? Teddy isn't convinced. Their situation is complicated, but staying together just isn't working. For her, this separation is hard, but it's right. All of which is to say, nothing has changed with Teddy and Owen. Well, one thing has changed. Nora officially puts a stop to whatever she and Owen were starting. She needs to rely on Teddy for her health, and getting in the middle of this divorce makes it too messy. So, Teddy and Owen are basically the same except Owen is even sadder. What does all of this have to do with Webber? Well, another victim Owen and Teddy bring in from the pileup is Glenn, an aide to an autistic person named Aaron. Glenn's injuries are extensive, and his chance of survival is, let's call it, low. So low. But then, Webber arrives in the and swears they are going to save this man's life. When he has to tend to another patient, Bailey takes over, and it becomes clear to her that there is nothing more to do for Glenn. They need to call the time of death. Once again, Webber walks in just in time. They are not calling the time of death, they are going to save this man. Bailey disagrees, and stands there aghast that Webber would keep pushing this. But push he does. They open Glenn's chest and inject his heart with AP before doing chest compressions. They are not giving up. They are going to give Glenn everything they've got. Suddenly, he has a rhythm. Weber was right to push, he saved this man's life. After Bailey finishes fixing all of Glenn's injuries in the OR, she goes to apologize to her mentor and friend for fighting against him with this patient. Weber was right to fight for him. It's then that it becomes clear just why Weber was so desperate to save Glenn. Weber has just learned from his urologist that he has prostate cancer. He is about to be the patient. He will be entering his own fight and hoping that his doctors fight just as hard for him too. On your service. Thankfully, the Gray Sloan residents are having much better days than the attendings. It certainly doesn't start that way. Weber sends out an email informing all residents that they need to increase their caseloads by 10%. People are stressed, to say the least. Quan is eyeing one case he'd like to add to his load. Dr. Mohunty is scheduled to perform a tram flap later that day, and he wants in. Mohunty is worried that if she agrees, she'll look like she's favoring him, especially since she just told Lucas no when he asked to join her in the OR. Alas, Quan is her favorite. She cannot resist the Quan charm, and we ask, who can? So, she makes him a deal. If he can place a wound vac on her 80-year-old patient Frank, he can have the surgery. The catch? The ulcer that they are trying to keep clean and let heal is right next to the anus, and this has made it impossible for anyone else to properly place it. But what's a little anus-adjacent ulcer to Quan when a coveted surgery is on the line? Quan enlists Lucas and his intern for the day. Danny, you remember her from the season premiere. Meredith had to operate on her in the clinic, without telling his friend that he'll get the surgery Lucas wanted if they get this wound vac sorted out. However, Frank, the grumpiest old man to ever grump, spills the beans, and Lucas rescinds his offer to help. Danny stays to help Quan, but soon he's called away to the wound vac can't be placed, and Frank will need an ostomy to give that ulcer a chance to heal. Frank pretends like he's not upset by this news, but it's clear to Danny that he is. It's Danny who convinces Lucas to go back and try the wound vac again, thanks to a heartfelt speech about taking an oath to heal people. Frank is old, and an ostomy could come with a lot of problems. They owe it to him to at least try. We all know that behind that brooding face, Lucas is a softie, and so off he goes back to the anus ulcer. He does ultimately place the wound vac, but he also pretty curtly dismisses Danny while doing it. But again, the guy is all heart, and when Mohunty offers him the tram flap, he asks if Danny can scrub in too. Don't feel too bad for Quan though. He bumps into Mohunty on the elevator, wink wink, and informs her that he's not torn up about losing out on the surgery. He knows there will be more surgeries. When he wants something bad enough, he will do everything in his power to get it. It's Mohunty who asks if a tram flap surgery is all he wants. His answer? He stops the elevator, and they furiously make out. I told you Quan was her favorite. Thanks for watching this videos. Please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.